about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dahlia, 1-877-DOCDALI. So actor Eric Dane has died after a long and very courageous battle with ALS. He was only 53 years old. I believe he revealed to the public that he was struggling with ALS about a year ago. And then we saw him, require wheelchairs, multiple medical assistance, and then unfortunately, he died. Prior, though, he became very passionate advocate for awareness and research, and he, wanted to make others aware. And it's just heartbreaking to see something like this happen. So, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, we also used to call Lou Gehrig's disease, and Lou Gehrig's disease was sadly a part of Lou Gehrig's medical history. ALS, or amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, was first discovered back in the 1860s. French neurologist Jean-Martin Charcot, known as the father of neurology, he and his colleagues discovered that certain spinal cord lesions, depending on where they recurred, would present differently in a patient as their paralysis progressed. Now, they named it ALS by the 1870s. When I learned about it, I was in school about 25 years ago. They called it Charcot's disease, Lou Gehrig's disease, but now we're calling it by its name, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or ALS. It's interesting. I see a lot of media outlets not say amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. I think they're worried that it takes too many characters. So Lou Gehrig was diagnosed with it back in 1939, baseball Yankee legend. 2 weeks later, he had to retire. He gave his famous farewell speech. It began with, "Fans, for the past 2 weeks, you have been reading about a bad break I got. Yet, today I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of this earth." So he ends up dying 2 years later. It was the first time most people heard of the disease. And so, since people didn't really know what it was, they called it the Lou Gehrig's disease. So what is it? Well, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, it's a progressive neurodegenerative disease that causes the death of neurons responsible for innervating muscles. When muscles don't receive nerve signals, they eventually weaken, twitch, and then atrophy. Muscle atrophy leaves the patient unable to move, and eventually the patient cannot speak, eat, or breathe. The number one cause of death in somebody with ALS is respiratory failure. Even though, yes, if they can't move, they could get bed sores, they could get blood clots, they could get infections, UTIs, things like that. Respiratory failure, unfortunately, can be the main killer. Steve Mongo McMichael, former Chicago Bears star defensive tackle, had revealed that he had amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. This was, I believe, back in 2021. He attributed it to a possible neck injury from his wrestling years. And then Dwight Clark alluded to head trauma being a part of ALS. In 2010, a study out of Boston University discussed an abnormal protein called TDP43. Dr. Ann McKee has been studying CTE and chronic traumatic encephalopathy. We've talked about Dr. Ann McKee. She's associate professor of neurology and pathology at Boston U. But she found high levels of this protein in the brain and spinal cord of two former professional football players and a former boxer who sustained repeated head trauma, and they all developed ALS. And then another study found back in 2007 that there's an 11 times increased risk of ALS among Italian soccer players who had suffered multiple head injuries when compared to those who never sustained head trauma. Then another study looked at those who served in the military were at higher risk of ALS. So people are kind of worried. They're like, how can I get this? Well, genetics plays a role. Smoking also can play a role. There's another theory looking at glutamate, a chemical messenger of the brain that appears high in those with ALS. So there's about 5,000 new cases each year, according to the ALS Foundation, 30,000 people living with the disease. We still don't have a cure. Less than 20% of those affected live past 5 years at the time of diagnosis. It's 2026, and we still don't have the ability to save people's lives. Eric Dane was born and raised in San Francisco, California. He started his career in the 1990s. He was on Saved by the Bell and The Wonder Years, but then he played Jason Dean on Charmed. And then that's when his professional life took a huge turn. And then he became Dr. Mark Sloan, or McSteamy, on Grey's Anatomy in 2006. I never saw Grey's Anatomy. I need to. But apparently, according to Fox News, he did struggle with addictions to drug and alcohol. And according to a podcast back in 2024, he said, if you take the whole 8 years I was on Grey's Anatomy, I was blanked up longer than I was sober. And that was when things started going sideways for me. He admitted that to host Dak Shepard on Dak Shepard's podcast. He left the show in 2012, went into rehab for an addiction to painkillers. Now, could he have needed painkillers because he was suffering with early ALS? You know, I know, people always are like, God, did drugs and alcohol cause it, or did, we don't know. But, he left Grey's Anatomy. Then I think did another episode, Last Ship show. And then he took a break because of personal reasons. Then he started battling depression. And he said I dealt with depression throughout my life, but it was always manageable. I felt like, everybody kind of feels a little blue, but this hit me like a truck. I had to take some time off. I went away. I took care of it. And I'm feeling great. And again, how much of that was due to ALS? And so then in April 2025, that's when he announced he had ALS. And so in June on Good Morning America of last year, he said he was prepared to go to great measures to fight it. He said, I will fly to Germany and eat a head off a rattlesnake if doctors told me that would help. So you could see he was scared. You could see he wanted to fight it. And unfortunately, the disease got him. So I would definitely, talk to medical providers, about any symptoms that you might have. ALS is rare, but it can happen. And go to the ALS Foundation for more information. But our prayers are with Eric Dane's family, and may he rest in peace. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Let's face it, guys, we're living in times where the truth is becoming more suppressed and censorship is increasing at an alarming rate, especially on social media platforms. It's Clyde, and I want to tell you about a safe and secure digital playground we put together just for you. It's aftermath.media. You get access to thousands of Ground Zero archives and podcasts, along with our private social media groups with your basic membership starting at only $7 a month. Each subscription includes tech support, access to the RSS feeds, along with our own chat room and Telegram channel. In addition, the premium membership includes research study groups, webinars, a document and movie library, a live video stream of Ground Zero, a monthly Zoom chat with me, and other bonus content. Be sure to check out our yearly specials as well. Sign up today while you're thinking about it. Sign up at aftermath.media. Again, that's aftermath.media.
1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So obviously the biggest story of the day is the Supreme Court ruled against the Trump administration 6-3 about unilaterally imposing tariffs without congressional approval. Trump is upset, obviously, calls this ruling a disgrace. And now there's going to be a little bit of chaos as to what happens. Does the money have to be paid back? Are there going to be other ways where Trump can tariff other countries who are over tariffing us, or doing things to people like what happened with the Christians being slaughtered in Nigeria, and can they sanction, or can they impose tariffs to try to get the government to do something? Trump wanted to use this as a non-military way of getting other countries to do what they're supposed to do. But according to the Supreme Court, no. So the court ruling said that Trump exceeded his authority and should have gotten congressional approval for the tariffs. The conservative majority, interestingly, ruled 6-3, and 3 joined the liberal justices. And I've always said I have a problem with the Supreme Court being right and left. I really, really think that they should be using common sense, neutrality when they look at everything. But this also shows that, even though the 3 left-leaning judges seem to always vote that way, you are seeing some independent thinking from the more conservative justices. The 3 justices who dissented was Clarence Thomas, Sam Alito, and Brett Kavanaugh. And so where they ruled was that the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or the IEPA, a 1977 law that was designed to address national emergencies, Trump used that International Emergency Economic Powers Act to implement them. And if I have some exact verbiage from Chief Justice John Roberts, he says, "We claim no special competence in matters of economics or foreign affairs. We claim only, as we must, the limited role assigned to us by Article 3 of the Constitution. Fulfilling that role, we hold that IEPA does not authorize the president to impose tariffs." So, this is obviously a concern, because one way Trump avoided, getting very into it with these other countries. I know people think he started to make enemies and destroy relationships, but if we're getting screwed and somebody's calling them on it, I mean, like if you're in an abusive relationship and you just stay quiet, I mean, that's not peace. You're still getting abused, and so, it has to be addressed. Do that. And it's like ripping off a bandage. So Trump said, we're going to, you're tariffing us to a ridiculous degree. We're going to do reciprocal tariffs. And even though he even said, look, we're not going to do the exact same number you're doing to us, because that would put you to economic ruin. But we're going to start, inching closer to matching it until you start to lower your tariffs on us. And of course, the Democrats didn't like this. They got grumpy, and it ended up, going to the Supreme Court. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens next, because Congress, if Congress has to give approval, and if that's what the Constitution says, then that's what the Constitution says, and Congress has to give approval. But there's not a lot of more months left where, it's a red tsunami, so to speak, after the last election. And so it is being predicted that after gerrymandering and other things, that the House is going to go to Democrats. So if Trump wants congressional approval for tariffs, he's going to need Congress to act. Now, thinking ahead, beyond, what Trump's doing in presidencies, we need the checks and balances. All right. But we also need to stop being screwed. And as I said this earlier last hour, when I had seen the tariff numbers and I had seen what other countries were doing to us, my first thought is, why did Congress let this happen? Who was sleeping on the job? I wasn't even blaming Biden for it. This was a Congress issue. And so when I saw this happen, I'm like, Congress needs to fix this. And so, should Congress have fixed it last year? Well, Trump thought that he had the executive power where he could start fixing it. And maybe some good came out of that because other countries, I mean, now the conversation is out there going, okay, you're screwing us over. This stops now. So I think it is going to be harder for a Democratic president if Newsom, let's say, gets into office. I think it's going to be a lot harder for them to go, okay, you know what? Yeah, we'll go back to being screwed over again. So something got done. I mean, Trump brought this to light going, do you guys realize how screwed over we are? I mean, just like with medications. With medications, we knew that because we saw medications in Mexico and Canada were cheaper. Medications in the UK were cheaper. And people were saying, why does the U.S. pay more? So Trump got on that. He didn't have to go through tariffs. He just, worked the deals with the pharmaceutical companies. But as it pertains to exports and imports and all that, and our trade deficits, now, the cat's out of the bag. So if I know Democrats are kind of rejoicing that, yay, the Supreme Court ruled against Trump, he can't do, we don't want anybody overstepping powers. If the Constitution limits powers, okay, I mean, we want to make sure the Constitution limits, powers because, there could be any president that comes in and does, overstep. So we want those powers to be in play, but we also want Congress to do their job. If Congress allowed this to happen, okay, they better fix it. And so Congress could very easily pass a law saying reciprocal tariffs. I mean, or a 50%, a 0.5 reciprocal tariff. And I mean, they could do, I wouldn't advise to, max it. There needs to be some flexibility and latitude, but this might be a good thing. Because now Congress could, because the issue with executive orders is Biden came in and reversed everything Trump did. Trump came in, reversed everything Biden did, and it goes back and forth. If America wants to quit being screwed over, Congress has to step up. So if I have a criticism about the tariffs, is Congress got to, I guess, not address it and own up to this needed to get done. Now they got to get to work. And they don't have a lot of time. Because for some reason, it is being projected that if Democrats win, they are not going to be pro reciprocal tariffs. They are not going to want us to stop being screwed over. I don't know why. It's not a good look. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. So Trump would rather use tariffs than, iron fist type of thing. And so, Trump does have other tariff routes. There apparently, there's other, I guess, aspects, such as Section 122 of the 1974 Trade Act, which allows him to impose temporary import surcharges of up to 15% for 150 days while he addresses alleged large and serious deficits in the country's balance of payments. So it does allow there to be wiggle room. Look, if you're getting screwed, you could tariff back. It just now people are saying, well, he's got to pay all that money back. I don't think he necessarily has to pay it all back, but I think that there's going to be some chaos following this. Do I think the Supreme Court is wrong? Listen, if the Constitution says that it's a congressional issue, it's a congressional issue. There's then not a lot of debate on that. If, however, the trade deficit and what is being happened is so grossly negligent or is so grossly egregious, then we do need to know what the president can do, legally if Congress doesn't act. And so that's the problem. When we looked at some of these numbers, our jaws dropped. Some of these countries were charging us 80%, 90%. Come on. And so there has to be a way for us to, level the playing field. And I get America is richer than a lot of these other countries, but that doesn't mean we get screwed. So, apparently the revenues were anywhere between 240 billion and 300 billion. And one thing Trump wanted to do, which was very exciting and helped get him into office, is the quote unquote external revenue service. where if he can get other countries to pay us, then we don't have to pay taxes or the high taxes that we're already paying. Now, I don't want other countries charged inappropriately, but if we're just talking about them paying their fair share, that we, and we're still paying them more, that could be, this is something that Congress needs to look at right away. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, don't go away.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
in many states, the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts. Due to a cleaner burn, there are less hydrocarbons and particulate matter in your exhaust. This reduces the blockage of your diesel particulate filter. Using Diesel Extreme generates 83% less DPF regeneration. The 6-in-1 Diesel Extreme formula also includes the most concentrated detergent on the market, lubricity enhancer, water demulsifier, rust and corrosion inhibitors, and a fuel stabilizer.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret.
Powered by science.
And we're back on the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOC-DALI. So President Trump has directed the administration to release files on UFOs and any alien and extraterrestrial life. Now, I think he was going to do that last year, and I think he started to. And I don't think people really understood what they were looking at. But I guess in a Truth Social post, the president told Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and other agency heads to begin the process of identifying and releasing any relevant files. I like that. I think we do have a right to know what the heck is going on. All we've been hearing about are UFOs. And although I don't think they call them UFOs anymore, I think they're called unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAPs. Unidentified flying objects was so much easier to say, but unidentified aerial phenomena, I guess, allows there to be a little bit more flexibility with, rather than it being an object. See, an unidentified flying object suggests, and I like the term UFO. It's easier to say. Aerial phenomena is kind of difficult to say, but an unidentified flying object is suggesting something is actively flying, as opposed to being in the air. There's like an active activity, because that's what UFOs were thought of, back in the 50s and 60s, where an alien was actively flying a spaceship. So they were unidentified flying objects. They were flying, they were actively in the air, and they were an object. So they were something that had mass, hard matter. They had to change it to unidentified aerial phenomena, because meaning it's something they see in the sky and it's a phenomena. So it's a very generic, very non-concrete, loose sort of term for seeing something, whether it's a reflection, whether it's a laser, whether it's anyway, UAPs. Although UAPs, for lack of a better term, are encompassing UFOs. The military said in a 2024 report there was no evidence that any government investigation into UAPs has confirmed the existence of extraterrestrial life. Yet, President Barack Obama was telling a podcaster that aliens are real. Now, he later clarified that he never saw evidence of contact between humans and extraterrestrial life during his time at the White House, but he primarily believes that extraterrestrial life is real because statistically the universe is so vast that the odds are good there's life out there. So I didn't listen to the whole podcast, but Barack Obama was saying, look, as president of the United States, as president, I mean, he was kind of, giving people the inside, because he was in the White House, right, for 8 years. And so this was like, whoa. Well, then why did you release it? Why didn't you tell us? And then what's the current president doing? So Trump thought that the president made a big mistake because he was giving classified information. And he said, I may get him out of trouble by declassifying. I don't know if that's Trump's, motive to get Obama out of trouble, but, he's looking at that as sprinkles on top. So pilots and military service members have reported spotting hundreds of unexplained objects in the sky. And so lawmakers are pressing the Pentagon to investigate the phenomenon. And I do believe this administration has been very interested in looking at what this is. Are these, companies testing out some of their new tech? Is it China? Is it, we've seen videos and we're like, what the heck is this? Last year, one House Republican released a whistleblower video of a U.S. missile striking an unidentified glowing orb in the sky and bouncing off of it. In another case, there was a former Navy pilot who told 60 Minutes about frequent sightings of strange, fast-moving objects in restricted airspace. Now, according to the military's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, they say a large number of these UAPs could be explained by birds, balloons, drones, satellites, and other everyday phenomena. But many cases are not explained. So the office said in a 2024 report, according to CBS News, it is important to underscore that to date, AARO, or the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, has discovered no evidence of extraterrestrial beings' activity or technology. The office also noted that it has no indication or confirmation that these activities are attributed to foreign adversaries. So we talked about that, I remember. And I was like, well, then what the hell are they? What is this? So Trump releasing this information or saying to release any files, again, he wants to be known as Transparent Trump, the transparent president. So good. I think that is a good step. What's in Area 51? I think even President Obama might have debunked, that Area 51 does not have spaceships or extraterrestrial. Wasn't there this big Facebook campaign where a whole bunch of people wanted to storm Area 51? They planned this a couple years ago. And then it turned out only a handful of people went, and the government said, look, you try to do this, you try to breach a base, or you try to breach, there's going to be arrests. This is not something. And apparently on Facebook, they had millions of people sign up, but nobody went. People didn't do it. I mean, I here's the thing. All right, I'm in my how many years I've been on this earth. Not going to reveal. If you really want to know, it's already online, but no need for me to cement it in radio perpetuity. But, for my time on this earth, one thing I've learned is the government does like to hide things. And the government will only give us what they want us to know. So that's, or they'll put it in an Obamacare bill where you just get exhausted by page 53 that you won't go into page 1053. So this is what the government does. I do also believe that God likes the number 2. Right? Like with Noah's Ark, where 2 of, every animal. Now, he did that because he wanted, the animals to repopulate. But, I think God likes to hedge his bets. And so are we his only creation? Was Adam and Eve his only? Were we his first? I mean, we believe Adam and Eve was God's first creation of man and woman. There's been a lot of debate as to why, he made Eve after Adam. My guess is, Adam was like, okay, this is cool, but what am I supposed to do? And he needed someone to kind of keep him on his toes, give him tasks to do. Here comes Eve. And so, do I think this earth is the only place Adam and Eve are, or were? I don't know. I really don't want to think that there's other life, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, the universe is vast. The problem is by the time anybody does come to see us, it could be millions of years from now. When we see a star in the sky, it's light years. So we see it and we're like, okay, there it is in real time. But for us to see it, it took years for that light to get to us. So the light we're seeing was emitted in the past. because there's a length of time it takes for us to be able to see that light, which means what we're looking at might not exist anymore. Or what we can't see might be in full existence, but it hasn't been able to shed that light for us to be able to pick up on it. So, and I know that's kind of confusing to some, but, I really do believe that there are life forms, and, look at how they found water on Mars and things like that. I really do believe that there could be cell types and certain cells and resistant sort of to the lack of air and anaerobic, because the air is pretty toxic on some of the, Venus looks all beautiful, but Venus is not Earth air, very, very toxic. It doesn't have the right components for us. However, that doesn't mean that it won't have the right components for something else. So do I believe there's extraterrestrial life? I do. Do I think they're interested in what Earth is doing? I don't know. I think, when they look at what our priorities are, they're probably like, man, we just, we must be bored. You have all these women out there blowing whistles at ICE agents. I think they would find us very boring. And thinking that we really have to kind of, right, we're not, farming and cultivating, and we're letting machines do it all. We're watching Netflix. So, no, but should we have, declassified whatever we do seem to discover on some of these things? Yeah. And if we aren't discovering what they are or confirming anything, we need to get going on that. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Hi guys, Dr. Dahlia here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdahlia.com. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com. Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
As an organ donor, your story doesn't have to end. The good in you can live on. In fact, you could save up to 8 lives and restore sight and health for many more. Sign up right now online as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. You'll be happy you did, and just maybe someone else will be happy too. Go to organdonor.gov. It saves lives. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
Welcome back to the Dr. Dahlia Show. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So just like that, the Olympics are almost over. I guess on the 22nd is the closing ceremony. I love the Olympics, especially the Winter Olympics. I just watch the snow and all that. But boy, things move pretty quickly. I think it was 17 days. That went really, really fast. Wasn't without its drama. America has moved into second place with medals. Norway still leads. They usually do. 17 gold, 37 total medals. But the USA, especially with what happened with figure skating and with hockey, congratulations, U.S. women's hockey team. And I wouldn't be surprised if the men's hockey team also ends up getting gold. USA has 27 total medals, 9 of which are gold. And so pretty darn impressive. Italy, falls to third place with 26 total medals and 9 gold. Then come the Netherlands, and then Germany, France, Switzerland, Sweden, Austria, and then Japan rounding out the top 10. And so really, really impressed with how Americans did. Not without its drama. Of course, the media want to get politics, back into something that really I don't think should have politics. I think it's political enough to have countries compete against each other. I mean, look at how America and Canada went into overtime. Okay, that's already drama enough. Do we really need to add on top of that, geopolitics and foreign policy and all that? But, the media tried to, have some of these athletes go out there and speak, and some did. And then, Amber Glenn, Olympian, who won gold for the team, but struggled in the short program. It wasn't that big a mistake, but apparently it was enough to drop her to 13th place. So she was never, ever, she wasn't able to make it to the, podium after the long program or the free skate. Alyssa Liu did, winning gold. Fantastic. Alyssa Liu, I mean, just wow, amazing. Love her personality, etc. But Amber Glenn said that Olympic mistake she made triggered attacks and hate online. Now, I know that she got a lot of criticism because she went political and she talked, and, I guess she called herself a woke bee, and she was representing, the other, female, like we woke, witches in a way, but she used the B word. And, there was some anti-Trump sentiment, but she was doing that, I guess, because one of her Olympian colleagues, Hess, was speaking out about how, he's wearing the flag, but he doesn't necessarily like what America is doing. And again, I really, as I've said before, these athletes need to be, left alone from the media in terms of bringing up politics. Let them, do their sport. Let them. And I said, if you're an Olympian, you don't want to get into this back and forth because the country's so split that no matter what you say, you're going to get hate. Just say, look, I'm here at the Olympics. I'm representing my country. I am excited and grateful that I get to do this. It's an honor. And I am here I got to focus on the sport. And that's where my focus is now. And then just leave it at that. Just don't, But Amber Glenn said that she has endured a wave of attacks of hate after that cause. I think what happened is she was supposed to do a triple jump loop. She ended up either doing a double or not being able to do the whole triple. So she got 0 points for that element, falls to 13th place, and then temporarily leads yesterday until everybody else from Japan and her partner or her colleague, Alyssa Liu, ends up just skyrocketing to the top. And she said that, she's been very open about her identity and advocacy, etc. But she said the backlash was a bombardment of attacks and hate. And, she said that they used the setback as a fuel for online negativity. I mean, I was under the impression a lot of people did not like her politics. And so they were, and it's a shame because, these athletes, it's hard to be an athlete. And I understand many of them feel like, just like Hollywood, well, if I get to be here, then I need to, have an opinion, and I need to, make this opinion known, and I need to, and again, that's what America allows us to do. And I'm really grateful for our freedom of speech. But if you aren't really, if that's really not your forte, and you forget that you're going to have a lot of people that are going to respond and challenge you and that, and you're in the middle of the Olympics. I mean, if I was her coach, I would say, look, turn off social media. All right. Unless you are looking for support. But in case there's not support on social media, don't let that distract you. Okay. You got a competition. You got to get going. You got to do your thing. If you notice with the NFL, you don't see a lot of NFL players go online and bring up politics. I mean, you saw a little bit of that with Nick Bosa and his MAGA hat and things like that right before the election. But it's interesting. You don't really see a lot of them. I don't see a lot of basketball players either because they don't want the distraction. And so, what shocks people is they think they're preaching to the choir. They think everybody loves them. They think everybody agrees with them. And then all of a sudden they hear all this backlash and they're like, wait a second, how can I be hated? You don't be hated. Just don't, if you're not ready or educated on the subject or, ready to take on political activism, hold off while you're at the Olympics so that you can do the Olympics. I mean, it's and I'm not saying this is her fault. It's just, I don't think a lot of people understand. I mean, the NFL players seem to understand that. Basketball players seem to understand. I think there's a lot of people that seem to understand, look, I got to focus on the sport. And I start getting political, there's going to be all this hate back and forth. And I wonder if that's going to start to change things, because during the Biden administration, everybody felt like they had to speak out against Trump. They had to be woke. They had to. And then, now I think people are going, wait a second. I thought I was preaching to the choir, and it looks like no. The majority of the country wanted Trump. They voted him in. They want legal immigration. And legal immigrants to come to the country, and not, because they want, they start to kind of look at that and they think, well, you know what, I could still be anti-Trump and people will love me, but apparently they're getting hate. And I don't want anybody to get hate for for how you feel politically. Everybody should feel like they should be able to be free on who they want to vote for. But sadly, the left brought on a lot of this hate and forced people to make a choice. So now you have Olympians going, okay, wait a second. So I'm wearing the American flag, but now I'm being challenged on, everything about America. And so, here's Hess saying, well, and he's, stammering through it about how, he's wearing the flag and he's, but he doesn't agree with everything, whether he feels that way or not. These Olympians don't need that. And then if this is what the media wants, what are we looking at in terms of future Olympics? Does every single person who represent every country now have to be versed and educated on geopolitics and foreign policy and national politics and national security and immigration, so that when these Olympians I don't care about an Olympians, I just want to know, are you going to win? How are you, prepping? What's your diet like? What's your workouts like? What are you thinking? That was just a small mistake in the short program. How are you going to, overcome? Yeah, I mean, when you watch sports, do any of the sportscasters ask the coaches at halftime, about how they feel politically? No, it's like, what are you going to do? What's your defense going to do? What's your offense going to do? That's why we're watching. And if the media is going to start turning this into, listen, we're going to be asking you about political questions, it's going to distract the players. Your audience is going to hate it. And now we're going to have every Olympian and their mother have to stand there and handle political questions on China, Japan, Russia. It's ridiculous. And so, Amber Glenn has been very open about her mental health struggles. She did not look happy. She, has said it has been an emotional toll. I hope she's well. I really, really congratulate. I love Alyssa Liu. I think she did a fantastic job. And hopefully the Olympics continues. U.S. continues to soar. 1-877 Doc Dolly. Don't go away.
Can you believe, with all the recent violent protests, looting, and destruction, some areas are considering either defunding or abolishing the police? At a time when America's neighborhoods need the protection of police the most, some elected officials would rather create more chaos by playing politics. If you're sick of elected officials caving in to demands of the radical left, you're not alone. It's time we stand up and declare our support for local police. The majority of police officers are important partners in protecting our God-given rights. If you prefer freedom over chaos, then learn how you can help protect the local police that serve your community. Call today and request your free Support Your Local Police info packet. Dial 800-JBS-USA-1. That's 800-JBS-USA-1. Request your free Support Your Local Police info packet by calling 800-JBS-USA-1 today.